You have got to be kidding me. With all the problems the state of Illinois faces, this is what our Democratic lawmakers are working on.
But there is new legislation that is aiming to decriminalize prostitution in Illinois. Prostitution is illegal in all states except certain parts of Nevada. A bill introduced today by Illinois State Senator Selena Villanueva and State Representative Will Guzzardi was led by the work of the Sex Worker Advisory Group, also known as SWAG. Supporters of this bill say the criminalization of adults engaging consensually in sex work is what makes the line of work so dangerous.
Violence is not inherent in the sex trades, but criminalization has forced sex workers underground, where the lack of workplace protections, safety measures, and workers' rights make them vulnerable to abuse. We must recognize that the complex and interconnected factors, such as poverty, racism, misogyny, and weak worker protections, fuel both labor and sex trafficking.
Lawmakers say this bill seeks to address safety and lack of access to essential services such as health care.
Are Illinois Democrats and radical California liberals competing to be the most anti-God state in America? I mean, what on earth possessed these people to even consider legalizing prostitution? What vision do these so-called leaders have for the state of Illinois? Now, the people who advocated for this bill to be law, an organization called Equality Illinois, and according to their CEO, Brian Johnson, advocates for sex workers said they believe these policy changes will offer sex workers the ability to better vet clients and meet with them in safer places. The proposed policy changes would also allow sex workers to report crimes against them without fear of consequences in their own lives. The threat of arrest and prosecution keeps sex workers unsafe and in the shadows, and this threat must be eliminated, said Brian Johnson, CEO of Equality Illinois. All right, so what's next? Taxpayer-funded safe houses for prostitutes to have sex? And another thing is, what does LGBTQ rights have to do with legalizing prostitution? Because if you check out Equality Illinois website, that's what they're all about. Promoting LGBTQ values and standing up for their so-called rights. Now, I understand why prostitutes and Johns want to decriminalize prostitution, but the government? And these crazy liberal activists claim that if prostitution were decriminalized, prostitutes would be safe. But store owners get robbed every day. I mean, what really makes these people think legalizing prostitution will keep prostitutes safe? Oh, and another reason they want to decriminalize prostitution is because they don't want to get arrested.
For over 20 years, I worked as a sex worker. I originally got into sex work as a young woman for many reasons. First, I wanted to take ownership of my own sexuality. For too long, I saw how people, men, wanted to control my body, but I wanted to be clear that I was the one who got to determine who I had sex with and for what. Second, as a young trans woman who was not always welcome into traditional working spaces, sex work was a way for me to earn stable money. Finally, as a young trans woman who had the unique expenses related to my own transition, sex work was a way for me to afford my transition. In short, sex work gave me the power, the money, and the stability that I wanted. To be clear, I was not coerced into sex work. I was not a victim. As a sex worker, I wanted to control my own body. But that didn't mean that I wasn't safe and I wasn't afraid. Many times I was terrified. I was afraid of a prospective client might turn out to be a police officer who would harass and arrest me. I was afraid a client might turn violent. And because of sex work existed on the outside of the protections of the law, and traditional economy, I had to navigate that fear mostly on my own. My sisters, my network, and other champions supported. Over the years, I have worked with many young sex workers, most trans sex workers, and my story is not unique. The young women I work with want to be in control over their own bodies and want to be safe. But in this current laws around sex work threaten their agency and their safety.
That was Raina Ortiz, Program Director at Task Force Prevention and Community Services, and also a board member for Equality Illinois. Liberals' priorities are twisted. Instead of deterring crime, they encourage it. And like I said, this will turn Illinois into a prostitution hub. So I guess it will help with the declining population. But almost every whore and pimp will be setting up shop in Illinois. Look at what Seattle is going through.
Well, hi there, Preston. That surveillance video just so alarming. And I want you to take a look at this, also very telling. This building wall riddled with bullet holes from that gunfight. I counted 21 bullet holes. And that's not counting the building hit across the street. Councilmember Kathy Moore told me she believes it's linked to a turf war over sex workers. Alarming, dangerous, and not the first time a gun battle happened here at Aurora and 101st Street. Some so fed up with gun violence, they are documenting whatever they can with their own cameras and shared this with Como. We see an apparent argument between at least one man and several others. One person pulls a gun and fires towards a group. A gunfire is returned. We counted at least 15 gunshots within 5 seconds. Seattle police say they recovered over 30 shell casings.
We need to figure something out here.
Rudy Pantoja lives here and works for the business district.
Stuff's not getting done. I mean, come on, man. This is heavy metal, you know, and these things kill.
He found them after police swept the scene. This is the second shooting like this at the exact same spot since June. This one in mid-June, rapid-fire shots at an SUV. Later that month, 41 rounds emptied between two groups nearby.
Dear Illinois, Seattle pimp wars coming to a town near you. Now in California, prostitution is illegal. But in 2022, the Democratic leadership there passed a bill restricting police officers from arresting prostitutes. Only the Johns and pimps get charged. But as you can imagine, by not locking up the sex workers, prostitution is basically legal. Oakland has been hit hard by open market prostitution. Just listen to some of their residents speak on basically legal prostitution and how it's affecting their once nice, quiet neighborhood.
Last year, the city added barricades on a portion of East 15th Street to stop illegal prostitution, and neighbors say it worked. But it only pushed the sex workers back to International Boulevard.
Turn it off.
We're on a public sidewalk.
Turn it off. That's really rude. What's wrong with you?
2 sex workers waiting for customers on the busy International Boulevard.
We see this every day. Like, it doesn't cross our mind like, oh, this should not be happening here. It's just like, oh, this is Oakland, this is regular.
High school senior Trang Nguyen and many neighbors say it's become normalized. Sex workers walking in thongs and see-through tops.
Me and my friend joke about it. That's how normal it is.
Every day, families are greeted with girls stopping traffic and soliciting customers. Stephanie Zarate pushes her stroller past the sex workers on a daily basis. Some girls in bikinis, others in see-through tops.
I think that's not appropriate, but I mean, we can't really do much towards them.
She says this type of behavior has become normal on East 15th. She worries for her 2 young kids.
I'm scared for them to see them in that appropriate clothes, asking me questions appropriate.
Unbelievable. Democrats want a lawless society. In multiple states, Democrats have already eliminated cash bail, and Illinois has the Safety Act, where places like Chicago have liberal activist judges who decide if a defendant should stay in jail or be released to await trial. But no matter what these whacked out liberal activists claim, legalized prostitution will bring crime. A lot of prostitutes are already addicted to drugs, and drug addicts come with drug dealers. But when sex workers, or whatever you want to call them, whores, prostitutes, when they relocate with their pimps to places like Chicago or any other gang-infested city, it is going to cause a lot of problems, like the Seattle Pimp Wars.